The first is relates to issues surrounding the missing ECG equipment. We know that some containers actually that contains various items, including meters, cables, among others, came into the country. We're told that about 1,003 of them got missing. Now, since that particular incident, national security has been embarking on an operation to try and find these containers. Some arrests have been made. But it's very interesting that since the issue of the missing containers came to public light, all of a sudden, every now and then, there's some discovery of some cable, either in a vehicle moving somewhere, or it's been found in some residence somewhere. I mean, the latest incident has to do with about 100 boxes of meters that was found in a bush at Kansarodo in the western region. And already people are asking questions. I mean, how did it end up there? There are issues of, is it possible that those are part of the items that were in the containers that have gotten missing, or is it a case that is not related and simply people who are reporting issues of missing items simply because of the news surrounding it? And in terms of the details that we know so far, so the national security operatives undertook the operation upon a tip-off. There was one site which is an uncompleted building which had about 7 drums of fiber and aluminium cables stashed at the compound. Additionally, the team uncovered 100 boxes of single-phase meter boxes, packs of electrical switches and other electrical tools at the private residence. Upon further investigations, it was established that the stock was released by MBH Power to Hegmi Co. Limited for some electrification works under the loss reduction program of the ECG. Now, a supervisor, upon interrogation, indicated that the company had documentation covering the said equipment. In terms of the second site, that is an undeveloped land located few meters from the private residence, and it had 41 drums full of aluminium cables and 5 used cables, including bundles of angled iron bars dumped in the bush. The owner of the site, neither the owner of the site nor the individual who packed the cables were there, and they are yet to be identified as well. Now, the national security has disclosed that they've been instructed to confiscate the items for further investigation. The national security official who led this particular operation says he is dissatisfied with the responses that have been provided by the company, and also the fact that they are also trying to track the other individuals that are behind this particular matter. So this is a very fast developing story that we'll try and get a hang of in terms of what we are learning from this incident, and the questions surrounding how important items belonging to the state should be kept. And the question remains that, well, are all these matters coming to the fore simply because there's been a change in government, or is it because of some good work that is being done by the various security agencies? And questions about even security at the ports, for instance. How did these containers get missing in the first place? I'm sure all of these are issues that are weighing in on the minds of many people. And to help me have this particular conversation, I'm joined by Professor Kwesi Enin. I'm sure you should know him, a security consultant, also a lecturer as well. Prof, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, a very good morning to you.
Prof, I want us to start the conversation with your own reading of this whole issue surrounding the missing containers as a start, because I mean that is the trigger that we've seen playing out, and now even when people see items moving around the country, they just connect it to it. What's your understanding of what happened at the port, and do we have enough answers that puts your mind to rest in terms of what could have accounted for how these containers got missing? Okay, so we've lost Prof briefly. We'll try and establish the connection back to Prof so that we begin the conversation with him. But this is a discussion about the containers that were imported into the country, and the part of the story that for many is the source of worry is the fact that from the onset, government officials did indicate that these were containers that came into the country, and procurement of items that ECG had indicated that they did not even require in the immediate term. So they over-procured. That was how this whole narrative started. Then the verification took place, and they realized that, well, the numbers that they had were not in the numbers that had been actually brought in. Now, Prof is back on the line. And Prof, the question I was asking was, what's your own understanding first on the issues surrounding the 1,300 containers that have been declared missing from the ports?
Yeah, 2,356 or thereabouts. This raises such disturbing questions about oversight, the role of the board, the security arrangements, the production of quality documents, either fabricated to allow these equipment or containers to leave the port, the levels of pollution to have allowed them to travel so far, the quality of control on our roads, and the manner in which this institution called national security works or does not work, dependent on who leads it and which government is in power, and the levels of political control and, manipulation. So let me start with my concerns around the way these equipment left the port. I mean, anyone who has gone to the Tema port or has cleared goods knows that, to even clear a bottle of water out of that place is one of life's most frustrating experiences. But be that as it may, there are processes through which everyone should go through. And of course, not least, the security checks that you need to go through before getting the authorization to move even your own personal goods, much more state goods belonging to the state of Ghana. So there have either been deliberate failure or levels of astronomical collusion between port officials from different agencies to get this equipment out. So Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority have to provide some answers. Within the period that the equipment left, the specific security officials who were at the port have to be picked up. We need to look at their telephones and their laptops. We need to look at the documents covering these containers that allow them to leave the port. But we've got to be able to retrieve every single stolen container. Otherwise, it raises a subsidiary question or several subsidiary questions. One, were there other types of goods that were imported into this country for other uses, either personal or criminal, that have not been accounted for? Two, where would those containers be? And number three, who owns them? I'm saying this because if you relate it to the Sapamian, or whatever is pronounced, however it's pronounced, case, in which these containers came into the country, I think two are still missing, then it raises fundamental questions about the effectiveness of the control mechanisms at the harbor. And it raises serious concerns about the training, the dedication, and the willingness of multiple institutions and their officials. So a hypothetical question that I think you asked also is that had government not changed, would these cases have come up? Now, if the frightful or frightening answer is no, that they would not have come up, then I think the president's point or statement that the whole country has become a crime scene is probably even a conservative statement. That it is the crime or the crimes and corruption that binds us together. So probably we need to go to Parliament and get special laws to allow us to ask people to demonstrate and to prove the sources of their wealth, particularly people who have been in certain positions over the past 8 or 9 years. It cannot and it must not continue. Because those who are involved are willing and prepared to destroy the country, to bring our very existence into doubt. And I think it's time for us to fight back.
I mean, Prof, the point you make about the fact that the items, the containers, they left such a controlled and secure place. And you make the point that it should be easy for a sort of a tracking to identify and easily pick up a lot of people. What we have seen government do so far is that the only individuals that have been arrested are those who have been found with the items. At least we've not been informed of those who are, for instance, at the port who were on duty on that day, whether they've been picked up or any other person who may have signed for the release of those containers, because we understand that there are multiple agencies that would have to even give you clearance to get an item from the port. What's your own reading of what may have accounted or what may be accounting for we not seeing arrest in that regard, perhaps?
Well, if those people are not being arrested, or probably I want to believe that they've been picked up and they are being interrogated, then both options provide different types of answers. If they have not been picked up yet, and they are still in position, or they've retired, or they've been transferred, then it means such crimes and criminality will continue. But even more disturbingly is that it might also reflect the depths of the networks of collusion. Okay, and that is why I have appealed to His Excellency the President to get other experienced individuals involved in doing the network analysis that helps in linking different seemingly innocent individuals or groups, and to see the kinds of relationships and networks amongst them that will lead to people who may even be talking and showing concern. If they have been picked up, which I'm truly hoping His Excellency will question the people leading this process, then I can assure you they will be singing by now like the loveliest of canaries in the world. But whether they've been picked up or not, what this shows, you tie that in to the Sapeman case, you multiply that by the Galamsey, the theft of Rosewood, and then you can see the scale of the criminality or criminal actions that underpin and drive our dear country. So this is not just the Tema Harbor case or the containers. I'm sure we'll be hearing all kinds of other things, but we need, or the public needs, to be informed consistently, because others may have seen things that in our normal routine life, we don't even think about. But the more the public is informed, the more it will trigger something in people's minds that, look, I may have seen this here that looks suspicious, and I will need to report it. And let me make this point. Reporting is not about envy or hatred. It's about demonstrating loyalty to the state. But of course, it's important that we don't report just for the fun of it, because it takes away state resources, time that should be used elsewhere. So we've got a problem on our hands, because the same institutions that are doing this work now are the same institutions that failed to do the arrest. And therein comes the point about political control, okay, where the officials who were there afraid of political meddling. And when are we bold enough to say, no, sir, this is wrong, I will not do it, and be bold enough to report? Okay, so this is not about the criminals who have stolen these containers, the levels of collusion, those who were incompetent and allowed these things to leave the port, but it's also about our mindset and our capacity and willingness to use our training when unlawful orders are given, for us to be able to say, no, this is not right. I'm going by the book, and the orders you've given me are wrong. We need a change of mindset, the professional attitude that we bring to our duties, and our preparedness to pay the price for speaking up. There are too many cogs in the wheel ready just to say, yes, I must, and that must change.
And Prof, I mean, the point you make about the role of the public, and if you compare the Sappeman bust to this particular incident, I mean, location-wise, you see an uncompleted building. It's not a building that is so hidden from the public, yet you have items that, if you even take a look at them, because if you pick the Sappeman incident, I mean, is an uncompleted building. You go there, you just see containers that are packed there. That on its own, for an ordinary Ghanaian, should raise questions. Why is it that it still has to take the agencies moving around? What's your own understanding of what perhaps could be accounting for people wanting to mind their own business?
Well, one is the fear of retribution. The second is that, look, I go and report. Eventually, somebody somewhere within the receiving agency of my report will go and snitch on me. Okay? And people have experiences where they've done their citizen duty and they have become victims. Because those who speak the truth in our system are in a tiny minority. Okay? You won't get people to back you up. People are stealing equipment from their offices, whether it's building materials, whether it's stationery, so the levels of theft are from the bottom all the way up. It is just related to where you are located and the scale of the resources at your disposal. Okay, so there's a certain societal acceptance that, look, if you're in a position, this is what you do. And the few who say, but this is not right. You cannot steal the building materials on site. It's meant for a particular project. That the quality of the doors and door handles you bought for Project X are not of the quality for which you are charging your company for. That the extra iron rods are not for you to pick and take to your house. Okay, so the avenues for reporting all types of theft and criminality in our society aren't enough. Or there isn't enough trust that I can do this reporting. It will be taken seriously and not trivialized, and that I can see action being taken. And over time, the public begins to have a certain passive attitude to the criminalities that we see around us. And that is why, for me, our choice of words around this particular case or these cases must be the correct choice. When people say missing containers, did they fall off a truck into a ravine and we couldn't find it and therefore it's missing? But when they've been deliberately taken from where they ought to be, are unaccounted for, and are hidden in a bush warehouse, are being re-smelted and remolded, that is theft. They've been stolen. Deliberate criminal actions that will need to be punished appropriately. But I agree with you that we need to be doing more, and the public needs to know those who were on duty during that period and allow this to happen. I mean, you can show me pictures of the cables in the bush. They didn't walk there. They didn't fly there. People deliberately allowed them to move out of the port. And I'm really hoping that we will be getting some solid answers soon. Because all these pictures I am being shown and videos of, factories trying to smelt these things and X number of Chinese citizens being arrested, I am not interested, because it is just scratching the surface. Those who allowed and colluded with the criminals that permitted this to happen, the kingpins behind, those are the names I am looking for. And this is not the first crime they have committed anyway. So it's important that we find those people, seize their bank accounts, their phones, laptops, and use network analysis to find the people that they know and who are in cahoots with them.
I mean, Prof, in terms of the investigation of this particular matter, I mean, in terms of the communication, what we've mostly heard is the reference to national security investigating it. And I'm asking you, from your own understanding, with the changes we made when the Security and Intelligence Act was passed, I mean, more often than not, when people say national security, they are potentially referring to the NIB. Should that be the agency that should be leading it, or it should be the other investigative agency like the Police Criminal Investigations Department, for instance?
So let me explain something that I think for most of the public becomes a bit of a fuzzy space. So what the Security and Intelligence Services Act 1030 of 2020 does, and the preceding Act 526 of 1996, is that there is a council made up of different security and intelligence institutions and ministries. Then there is a secretariat that provides the support infrastructure for the council to work. Where the difference or the difficulty comes in And I think it is the wholesale importation of, I think, Article 21, 23 into the new Act. And this is where the confusion comes in. Should the Council as a whole, known as the National Security Council, be an operating arm, or when there is a case similar to the one that we are discussing, the supplement case or this particular container case, should it be a specific institution that is a member of the council that does the operation? So if, for the sake of the conversation, the council in its wisdom becomes alerted to the theft of these containers, the question then becomes, which of the institutions that are members of the council are best placed to lead this? Is it the NIB? Is it the police, CID, blah, 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 blah? Or there can be one or two institutions that come together to get the job done because they have the expertise. When we continue to use the amorphous terminology, national security, the implication is that either all of them are part of it, the investigations, or as is increasingly becoming routine, there are other structures located within the presidency that takes actions in the name of national security. That brings a lot of questions around operational independence, the technical competence of the institutions, and the issues around oversight. Okay, so it's important for us, even as these cases are going on, to start to reflect how the trained operatives behave and deliver the services for which they are trained for. And we have seen excesses when the nomenclature or the name national security is used. We've seen excesses where national security officials have beaten up police officers in traffic. We saw the excesses of national security or the SWAT team during the Ayawaso West Wagon by elections. We saw under the previous regime, so-called national security operatives seizing land, seizing properties, breaking down houses and all that. That is not what national security is about. It's about using the information gathered, doing the assessments, identifying where an operation must be held, and doing it within the rule of law and the respect for human rights. And I think we've gotten the experience since 1961 to 63 thereabout, when all these intelligence services were established, and after close to 50 years or 60 years in existence, there must be a culture that has developed over time. So knowing our history of where we've come from, I think it's key that these institutional overlaps and competitions and contestations as to who does what at what time must be resolved. I am hoping that the Parliamentary Committee for Intelligence, Defense and Interior will lift its activities over and above partisan politics and have a conversation around how national security operatives and institutions must function.
And Prof, I mean, related to that, and you made a point about the issue of accountability. I mean, that is at the heart of the question. And one asks that, I mean, in this modern era of intelligence gathering in terms of operational effectiveness and everything, and marrying that with the need of the public to be abreast with the state of investigation, would you suggest that maybe it's time we shift from the traditional view that national security, they do not communicate? I mean, you just see them acting, or perhaps it's time now that they regular briefings on some of these activities that they are undertaking?
Well, I mean, accountability is key. And I think at 10:30, when there was a national security ministry and joins the minister to appear before Parliament and send annual report to Parliament. We don't have a substantive minister nor ministry, but the council is still accountable because its constituent members come from respective ministries, of which, accounting is still done. Whilst the public, as the taxpayers for their functions and activities, have a right to know, there is also the need to keep particularly sensitive operational information away from the public space. So it's a delicate balancing act of providing information, generalized information, but also keeping sensitive materials and information that may hamper an ongoing or a future investigation away from the public space. Now, therein lies the role of the appropriate parliamentary committees who can be given security clearance and sensitive information shared with them, because as our representatives in Parliament, they can have access to knowing that they've been trained, they've been investigated, they've been cleared to have a certain level of security clearance. Unfortunately, the levels of partisanship in the way that our politics is done makes it difficult now to trust each other. So because of the lack of trust in our politics, the appropriate committees, Defense and Interior, Public Accounts, and Finance. And public accounts and finance are key here because they hold the purse strings as to how our monies are used in the name of security. So we need to raise the bar in terms of how best can Ghana's interests be served by parliamentary committees, and particularly when we come to issues around national security and intelligence performance. The recent case about these two aircrafts and the way it has become a public football is a case in point. Parliament and parliamentarians have a role, and there are specific procedures. So you can invite the minister, you can put up a motion on the floor, you can visit a particular site, I don't know whether they've gone to Tema to visit, or you can form a small subcommittee when there are issues that needs speed to be dealt with. So I'm hoping that, Parliament will use its powers appropriately and effectively so that the accountability and the transparency that we are looking for as we talk about national security, the way operations are carried out, and citizens' concerns can be dealt with and dealt with in a bipartisan manner.
And Prof, finally, in terms of the next steps in investigating this matter, how would you recommend the state security agencies approach it? And the context is that, well, some items have been found at Takoradi. We also seized some at Shire Hills. It appears that they are moving into different parts of the country. There's also another report of some other items that were also found at Swedru as well. So it appears it's not heading in one direction.
Well, that just tells you the levels of collusion, the planned criminality, and the extent. I think 40 containers were found in Tamale or something. So it's mind-boggling. Okay? It just shows you either the quality of the paperwork covering the documents for them to be able to be moved across the country, or the quality of the fakery of the paperwork. But it tells you that our loyalty, affection to the Republic of Ghana is at a very tiny place. So hopefully, these investigations will unravel the complexity of the networks behind this massive operation. And the Parliamentary Committee for Defense and Interior hopefully will start calling people to appear before it. Because these committees have the powers of a high court. So when they ask you to appear before it, there are no shenanigans. And certainly on this particular committee, there are some very good people on it. Honorable Peter Tobu is there, an experienced police officer. Honorable Agaga, the former Deputy Interior Minister, and other very competent people. And I think when they begin to crack the whip and invite these agencies to appear before them as to how they allowed these things to leave the port, then we'll have some very interesting things coming up. But this is just the beginning. And I think Ghanaians should brace themselves for the sheer levels of criminality and the depths of despicable behavior in which we have sunk as a nation.
Prof, thank you so much for joining us this morning for this very important conversation. That is Professor Kwesi Enin, a security consultant and lecturer as well, joining us with some perspective on this particular matter. In the studio with me is Nana Yao Sapon. He's a senior aide to Alan Kojo Chairman with the Movement of Change. Nana, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, my brother.
I want us to start from where we left off. I left off with Prof on the disturbing fact that the containers get missing at Tema, and all of a sudden, within a couple of weeks, we are finding it in different parts of the country. And if you look at what was found at Takoradi, it appears it's been there for a while. We do not even know for a fact if we can even connect it to what got lost at the port. But what we can say is that all of a sudden, items are being found Tamale, Swedru, Shire Hills.
Thank you and good morning to your cherished viewers. I believe that this issue has been discussed extensively, and prior to today I made a statement that if we actually want to find these containers, we will find them. Unless otherwise, we just want to let go of it. Now, you would agree with me, and I think Prof stated, last week I made mention of it, that there is a procedure if you would want to clear goods from the port. Now, in this procedure, there is chain of line. And at every point, there is an officer responsible. Now, from the time or the very last time the ECG had taken stock or audited their papers, they are able to tell us that they had a certain number. Now, when we need it, that number is gone. There's a time frame. There are officers that were operating within that time frame. There are people given certain responsibilities, whether security, whether management, whether shipping lines, whether clearing agents. So people were given responsibilities within that time frame. The port is not just any place you can walk in and out. And so if indeed we want to find it, there are people we can pick up. There are people we can question. There are people that should be held responsible at every line or in every line. My brother, unless otherwise, we are telling us that our ports are no longer secured. And so the ordinary Ghanaian who is into imports and into exports should be scared, unless otherwise they are trying to raise security concerns at the ports. So then I would ask, what is the role of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority? What has been their work responsibility? What is their core mandate? The national security people that we have there, what has been their responsibilities? Prof was talking about some lacuna within the Act 1030 that has to do with whether or not there is a secretariat and there is a council, and for that matter. But I beg to differ. If you read the Act 1030, Section 49, which talks about the interpretations, it's clearly defined. The council is council, secretariat is secretariat. The council provides that level of institutional or what we call the policy directions. The secretariat is made up of technical men that are supposed to implement those. So it's a clear, somebody's irresponsibility shouldn't give us an issue with our act. No. I mean, there is a police council. Is there not a police council? And they have the administration. They are there. Every institution has a board. So the council is more like the board. They provide a certain level of direction.
I guess the point is had to do with because the council comprises different agencies. So
there are a lot of institutions that its councils and its boards are made up of different institutions. Why?
Yes.
Because they are supposed to work together.
Yes.
You understand me? So you would have the national security. You would have a police, somebody from the police on the council. You would have somebody from immigration on the council. You would have somebody, even sometimes from the Ministry of Finance on the council. I do not know. But any institution that poses some level of security matter would have a rep on the council that they provide the policy directions. All right. The secretariat is the technical guys. They provide the technical know-how. And even at that point, you would find people from all works of security agencies coming together. You would have the BNI, now the NIB. You would have the police CID. You would have persons from immigration. You have persons from narcotic control. You have all of those people coming together to form the secretariat in order to have a working secretariat. All right, and somebody's irresponsibility or somebody's inability to perform should not make us want to go and look into issues of paper. No, there's a clear cut. I still stand by it that some people should be taken up. Some people should be questioned. Some people should be made to provide answers to Ghana. You get it? Prof made a profound statement. The containers didn't just fly to Tamale. The container was red. You understand me? No. And you see how beautifully they are scattered across the country.
Yeah.
And I said it the last time when I was here. I said that importations by ECG or by an institution like an agency like VRA or whatsoever are specialized products. And they come with specifications. You cannot just sell them to ordinary Ghanaians.
Yeah.
The cables and the wires they use are different from the ones we use in our houses.
Yeah.
And so those who even bought them or were alleged to have bought them, of what use would it be to them? So if they are able to find uses for these specialized products, then they themselves.
I mean, from what we heard from the minister, it does appear that more often than not, the aim is to resell to ECG. You remember there were some of the containers he said had been seized at the ports, they were auctioned, then ECG went back and purchased the same containers from them. Because either than that, what will you be using the meters for?
How are you able to auction a container imported, brought into the country by ECG? What was the custom officer thinking? The auctioneer, what was in his mind? Are they different from that district magistrate who ordered the release of the excavators back to the Galamseyers? You see, there are certain rulings or decisions that you take that when you are taking them, you would consider one, public interest and its effect on the public, the general well-being of the society within which you find yourself. And so, as an officer of the state, you have been given, even if by the rules, there are exemptions. You have been given a role to play. You get to the office. These containers are for a specific institution. They are not ordinary products. They are for an institution or an entity like ECG, specialized product. ECG is not for an individual. ECG is for Ghana. And your conscience does not do anything to you. You go ahead to auction them. What would you be thinking? See, and we've been talking about mindset change and patriotism, and we think it's a joke. I think that we ought to be able to take this serious. That from institution to institution, we should be able to push this agenda of mindset change. You just don't go and sit in your office behind your desk and take decisions because you are there to take decisions. Whatever decision you are taking has an effect or an impact on the society. I mean, there is no excuse. If you take their act, all right, uncleared goods has a procedure. I have forgotten the section. Which
I think we discussed it the other time.
Yes, I think I mentioned it.
Yeah, you did.
I mean, I don't want to use the phrase. But
another point, you were making a point about the role of the public, and I want you to stay on that for me, because what I was running by Prof had to do with where some of these items have been found. And even if you deal with the gold bust that was done a few days ago, this is an uncompleted place. It's not a hidden place. A place in the full glare of the public where you can see containers there. I mean, that on its own, multiple containers.
That is the level of the Adamic corrupt mind we have. That's the highest level of corruption, where the person, and criminality for that matter, criminality with impunity, that the person would be able to buy a criminal product and openly display it. They display it with impunity. That is the level we have gotten to. The level we have gotten to where we are not shy of what society will tell us. We are not thinking about the end effect negatively that would come onto the nation, but we only think about how much would come into our pockets. And I was happy when Prof linked it to Galamsey. If you are driving to Kumasi, you see it on the roadside, just by the roadside. In fact, some few meters behind the police station. And we do it with impunity. You see, at certain point in time, you would want to ask yourself if whether or not the people are thinking of the consequences. You see the way, what's the name? The MMDC raises nominations are going.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've read the news about how some people are behaving around.
Yes, I mean, there's a story that I've seen in Ebunu where, I mean, it turned quite chaotic and they had to abandon it and they will try to continue maybe later today.
There are some instances where it is alleged that even party executives, there was a news item I read from somewhere the Ahafwano North, are pushing an agenda of somebody who is funding their activities. And it is alleged that there is from Galamsey operations. And the person is not even shy but to admit it. And yet, with impunity, that is how much we have glorified criminality and corruption.
I mean, Nana, finally on this subject, I mean, satisfied with the state's response so far? I mean, it's been at least about 2 weeks since the committee submitted its report. I mean, we have not heard publicly any concrete steps since the report came out, except that we have been told that some further investigation will take place.
As a nation, we talk too much. We talk no action. When I think the first report, I don't know if it's the same report you're talking about, when I read it, I asked myself, to what is this report? Our containers are missing. We want our containers. There are over 40 or so pages of English you have written would do nothing to me. I was expecting that at the end of their report, they would tell us A, B, C, D are the action plans. And this is how we are going to go about it. They would, at the end of the day, they should have told us that this was the day these containers got missing. All right? This officer was on duty that day. This person was on duty that day. This is their responses to the questions we asked them. They are being held in custody whatsoever. Those are the actions we would want to be seen taking, not the English. Managerial procedures are there. Why would you want to change it? I mean, the director who is in charge of procurement at ECG, he stated it. His office is functioning very well. In fact, he even has a desk that is in charge of shipment. So what else do they want? Yeah. Those procedures are there. But how did they function? That is what we should be dealing with.
Okay.
If they were incompetent, they should be fired. I don't see why you have been given... It's a director position. And you are afraid of your colleague director. And you tell us that because of political interferences, Ghana should lose this quantum of money. The taxpayers' money. My brother, I think that we have gotten to a point where we need some level of reorientation. All of these institutions, even the information we put out, we should be guarded. There is a need for us to orient some of these leaders. I don't know, but I think I have to use the word so-called leaders. Sometimes you listen to them, look at what they do, and you would ask yourself that, did they sit in the same classroom to learn?
Okay.
Did they sit in the same churches to pray? Do they go to the same mosque to pray? Do they go to the same palaces to serve with the ordinary Ghanaians? Do they hear what the ordinary Ghanaians say? Okay. Do they feel what we go through before they take the decisions they take? I mean, the general... let me use it properly. I do not think that they are generational thinkers. If they are actually thinking about how generations after them would survive, like how the developed world has been, I do not think they would take some of these decisions.
Okay. All right. I mean, let me bring into the conversation Martin Kpebu. Martin Kpebu is a legal practitioner, a rights advocate as well. Mr. Kpebu, good morning. Hello, Mr. Kpebu.
Hello, good morning.
Yes. I mean, before we zoom into the second conversation, of which we'll be engaging you mainly on, I just want to pick your comments on how this whole issue surrounding the missing containers have been handled so far. The government's responses, the committee report has come out. Are we getting concrete steps being undertaken by the relevant state agencies since this particular news item became the subject of public discussion?
Yes, I would say by and large, we are making some progress. You see, let me use more general language so that we'll be very careful. The reason I say so is that it turns out that, you know, every coin has two sides. To the extent that we've not heard from the other side, specifically Dubik, Mahama, I'll be a bit cautious, but the ones we are confident of will state. So far, what is very clear and very, very alarming is that at least we've seen that we've lost some containers. Okay? Yeah, so because Dubik Mahama himself, even though he sought to say he wasn't answering fully, but he gave some answers and he talked about misplaced. If he knew where the containers were, by now he would have brought them straight. The interview he granted Mr. Okansi on Ghana Tonight, and then Ekusi say, it tells you that if he knew that, look, the containers are hidden here, straight away, he would have brought them. So to the extent that he's not be able to show where they are, it tells you there's a problem. That's one. So at least that one, when you say it, I haven't said anything against him. It's not like I'm being unfair. At least it means I'm being very balanced because the matter has been put out in the public domain. He came and talked and said they've been misplaced. But misplaced where he cannot tell. If he could even tell that on the day he was leaving office, look, all the containers were fully accounted for, then it means that straight away he has absolved himself. But so far, he can't show. And so what I can say, my second point is that this missing container saga reinforces the point that, yes, we really made a good choice in kicking the MPP out of office. Yeah, you see, those days I was making a lot of noise. Other people were making noise. People even said, oh, do you have a personal problem with a Kufuado? What? The things Ghanaians said, oh, at time, you see, look at this large number of containers. Till date, this one, the best Dubi can say is that they are misplaced. They are not lost. Where are they misplaced? He cannot tell. At least, Anka, the day he was leaving office, he should have a report that will show that on the day he was leaving, everything was all right. Or on the day he was leaving, only 100 containers could not be found. So today, if it's not in office and the number is ballooned to 1,300 and something, he doesn't know about the rest. But he can't give that answer. So for me, the more this container saga rages on, then the more I see the wisdom in Ghanaians really humiliating the MPP in the elections, showing them that we could really see the corruption. They were denying and denying. And apart from this container saga, you've heard other cases coming out. We kept saying they were corrupt. Oh, no, nobody's corrupt. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. You see, this is just a tip of the iceberg. From what I'm hearing informally, you see more cases, more. So kudos to John Jinapo. Kudos to him. Let it continue. As I've said, even if eventually the number is not 1,300, we would have gotten somewhere, because so far they don't have answers, full answers, except to say they are misplaced, but they cannot show where they've been misplaced, etc. Right? So let's go on to the second stage, where we'll do the forensics. Yes, the forensics. So that's to say the stage at which they'll do proper more detailed investigations, where calls will be made to the people who have come into contact with the containers, etc. You know that the stage one, the report that is out, it wasn't basically a forensic investigation. So we are now going to do the ones people will be called in and questioned, etc., to get more facts out. But I'm very excited at this revelation, the efforts by the minister to uncover this rot. You heard Afinyo Markin too. He said he came and met it. They said that's how it's always been done. You see? You heard him on the floor of Parliament, right? Yes, he says that's a practice. Something he came and met, but he couldn't stop. So you see why it is good to change government, so that you let somebody else attempt to stop it. Because Afinyo said it, that's a practice. And that he's saying that we should rather come together to help stop it now. But when they were in government, he didn't reveal it. Did Afinyo Markin reveal that there is a huge problem with containers at the ECG, so I need NDC to come on board so that we will solve it? No, they shelved it. It was a top secret. So once again, you see why we made the right decision to kick these people out, so that we can take stock, so that we can stop the bleeding, and then do the reset. So these are my preliminary comments.
Finally, on this subject, do you share the view that we should be seeing a lot more arrests, or you think that we should just be patient and allow the forensic audit, which the minister has made reference to take place before some immediate steps can be taken by way of prosecutions?
Both. So your answer has both. Definitely there will be more arrests. But the forensic audit will help to bring up the numbers of the arrests. So it's a question of chicken and egg. It's not easy to tell which one comes first. But naturally, I think on the balance, the forensics should come first, so that you get everybody at once, so that it's not done haphazardly. So let the forensics go on. Once it's done, as the forensics go on, people will be arrested as it goes on, because maybe based on certain revelations, while the forensics are ongoing, you don't have to wait. There's some kind of evidence. The moment you see it, straight away you have to invite the... And so that's also another question. When we say the forensics, so are we handing over to NIB so that we know that it's proper criminal investigations? And I would prefer we should involve Ghana police. We don't want to eventually leave Ghana police out of all these matters and give everything to NIB. In actual fact, it should be the police doing it. Then maybe if there are some challenges, NIB will be coming in. So are we giving to police, or when we say the forensics, that one to be another committee? I think that on the balance, they should do the Ghana Police Service so that we know that these are criminal investigations being started straight away. Yes, it will help. It will help so that when the police obtain the statements, etc., then we know that the cases will go to court faster. Because if we set up a committee that, like the first one, and it's not a police, it's not a criminal case, when the committee is done, still you have to now hand over the report to the Ghana Police Service, and then they will redo the same forensics. So we'll be losing time. So maybe if they want, they can be doing the criminal one and then give visibility to this current committee that the minister set in place, so that the committee will be seeing what's going on, and then they too can do their report separate. But basically, it should be with the Ghana Police Service so that we know that this is a criminal investigation that started, so that we don't lose time, because time is of the essence. You heard this venerable Attorney General say that he's been going on social media and he's seen how the people are getting impatient. Yes, the impatience is good, because what they are trying to say is that, look, don't do kukwasa, go slow. Don't do that thing. Don't do that pussyfooting. You have to hurry. Yes, we're also careful that it doesn't mean just hurry and botch the investigations. No. What they are saying is that the investigations require maximum attention, all resources. So, and all resources, number one resource is time. So you should know how to manage the time. So we can do a joint approach that this current committee can be asked to be liaising with the police. As the police are doing the criminal investigations, then the committee will be getting insights to do further reports for the minister, while the police go on with the criminal investigations, so that the cases will soon be in court, so that we'll hold the people accountable. But that's very important.
I mean, Councillor, I'll come back to you shortly for us to start our second conversation. But Nana, you have some reactions to some of the points Councillor made.
I am happy we have him speaking. I think that, you see, we have gotten to a point in time that some of the energies should be channeled in pushing an agenda to be able to have a proper functioning of our institutions. This is a clear institutional failure. And I think that if once it's an institutional failure, we should not politicize it. Whether it is NDC, whether it is NPP, once the institution is failing, or once the institution has failed, it would continue to fail.
Okay.
We ought to be able to make proposals that would make these institutions function well. And that is why I have emphasized the fact that those who were in line of duty, because listen, MD would always change.
Okay.
In fact, before he resigned or after he resigned, he would have submitted a handing over notes.
Okay.
Have we gotten the opportunity to peruse the handing over notes? Do we know for a fact what he said? I do not mind the interviews Dubik has granted, but have we had the opportunity to peruse his handing over notes? What were the comments in the handing over notes? How is the institution functioning? How would we have a procurement director who has a shipment desk, but yet agree to sanction that a private institution should be given that opportunity to work? Number two, we have sat here during the campaign, Movement for Change. We did propose that if indeed we want to fight corruption, then it means that we should be able to put together all of these institutions that have been given some level of mandate to deal with corruption. Martin was saying something. He said that, you see, we ought to be able to involve the Ghana police. Why? Because even when we are done with forensic audit whatsoever, okay, and the case handed over to the Ghana police for onwards prosecution via the Auditor General's office, the Attorney General's office, they would also want to do their own forensic audit. Why should it be so?
Okay.
When we could have put all of them together, all right, to have an anti-corruption czar, give them that mandate and push for such investigations and give them prosecutorial powers.
Okay.
You understand me? And this is where we should be channeling our energy.
Okay.
Because we would always make the noise if we do not have concrete, practical proposals on the table that are workable and achievable. We would always come back to this same discussion.
Okay. Okay.
Now, the very, very last one I want to talk about has to do with the forensic audit that he mentioned. It is good, but how do we get there? You understand me? We need to move from some point to that place.
Okay.
How do we get there? Who are those being shielded? Now, when we take the political angle, it would cover everything. What would make Afenyo go to stand on the floor of Parliament to say that that is what he meant? He went to meet. Now, once he has made that statement, you would see the NDC. They would also go and make another statement on the floor of Parliament.
Okay.
You understand? And you would have some of our public commentators, you understand me, because they have a voice and Ghanaians listen, they would also come in. Then it will worsen the case. And at the end of the day, the real deal is gone.
All right. I mean, let's see how all of that goes by way of the investigation. We can now zoom into our second topic, which we'll be touching on within a limited time that we have to try and bring you an update on. It has to do with issues surrounding the petition that has been sent. 3 petitions actually sent to the presidency seeking the removal of the Chief Justice. We know that there's a matter in court. It's coming up for hearing. 2 cases actually coming up for hearing tomorrow. We also know that the Chief Justice had written to the president asking for the opportunity to respond to the 3 petitions. The president replied and gave her 10 days to do that. That was to elapse yesterday. The information we picked up was that last week, Friday, the Chief Justice had submitted her responses to those 3 petitions as well. And so that is where we have come from and where we have reached at this point in time. And I mean, joining me for this part of the conversation, I have Victor Kojoga Adaodu. He's a legal practitioner, also a member of the National Democratic Congress legal team. Counsel, good to see you.
It's a pleasure. Yes, and good morning to Martin.
Yeah, okay.
You know, let me apologize in the first place. When I was coming, I had a flat tire. And it was a difficult time this morning get some organizers. You know, it's unusual of me being late.
I think Shadrach didn't pray this last night. Shadrach didn't pray.
So
I mean,
I apologize.
As for you, I know you and your time, just like all our other guests, always on time.
This is a platform. This is a platform
I
that
said
people
you're always on time. Always on time.
It's a platform people always want to be educated, and they always listen to it. So when they know we are coming and we are a bit late, they get disappointed and frustrated.
I mean, I'll come to you to start the conversation shortly, but let me just finish up with Martin, who is on the line on this second aspect. Counsel, in terms of where we have come and where we are now, I mean, are you satisfied? The president did assure in his letter that due process was going to be followed. Do you think we are fulfilling that? That is one. And the second part of the question is, what are your expectations in terms of what will happen tomorrow? There are some who are already making the point that they believe that some of the matters are moot at this point in time.
Okay. Yeah, so far, so good. So good because you see that we've made a huge improvement in our governance and in this Article 146 proceedings, because you see that this time when the Chief Justice wrote for a copy, it was given to her. Actually, I think the presidency communication from Dr. Kalisus Mahama was that they were actually in the process of sending the CJ a copy, right? When the CJ's letter came. So they had no problems giving the CJ a copy. That is a huge improvement. You remember the Charlotte Osei matter when it came up, the same Article 146. When Charlotte Osei wrote to President Kufuor for a copy of the petition against her, I hope you can pull up the response that Eugene Ahin, communication director at the presidency, gave. Yes, he said it was not within the place of Charlotte to ask for a copy from the president, etc. And they never gave Charlotte to say a copy until way down the line. So this time, with President Mahama even being on his way to giving the Chief Justice a copy, you see that this is a huge improvement. And once again, you see why it was good that we kicked the MPP out. Because the arrogance and the crass incompetence was way too much. I mean, come on. This petition concerns Charlotte Osei. She asked for a copy. You deny him, who is not even had not achieved much in life, like Charlotte Osei, wrote that letter. Very disrespectful. Somebody, Charlotte Osei, was far more accomplished. What work had Eugene Ahin done in life at that time?
Counsel, staying on the substance of the response, and you made reference to that response. The point he made was that it's quite curious, but whatever be the case, we certainly will be the wrong forum for lawyers to be looking for copies of the petition. Whatever be the case, if you are looking for copies of the petition, they are no longer with us, they are with the Chief Justice. She's even found it wise to set up a committee. So I believe the best place to get a copy is from the Chief Justice. I mean, should we not draw the distinction in that particular instance, the petition goes to the president, he forwards to the Chief Justice, who does the prima facie determination. In this instance, because it involves the Chief Justice, it is going directly to the presidency, who will do it in consultation with the Council of State. Is that distinction not relevant?
No, not really. Not really. You see, that's a distinction without a difference. And when they said, what do you call it? When Charlotte Osei wrote to the Chief Justice at the time for a copy, what happened? She never got a copy till long down the line. That one, is this Joseph Akabli?
Yes, Counsel.
Yes, Joseph. So that one, what does your record show? Akabli, what does your record show? I mean,
eventually she got it when the matters went to the committee. But I mean, I get a point about the initial level, so you can proceed on that tangent.
So the thing is that it was a whole political setup to just humiliate Charlotte Osei. I'm not taking much away from eventually the procurement breaches, but the process was orchestrated in a manner to disrespect her. You say it, and I'm saying that this time we've not seen such disrespect. We've not seen such disrespect, and it's very important. So we've made a huge improvement.
Okay.
Yes, so that's why I'm saying that so far, so this answers and concludes your question. So far, how do I see it? It's a huge improvement.
Okay.
Second part.
Yeah,
talking about the mootness.
Yes.
Now, when it comes to mootness, when you look at the Supreme Court decisions, to summarize, they say that if a matter is said that it will recur, it's likely to recur, then they would hear it. So which side is likely to recur? As if we made a claim that without giving the Chief Justice a copy, the Council of State should not also be given a copy. So that's to say the Chief Justice must receive a copy before the Council of State should do. It's not supported by Article 146. Let's not forget the Council of State is to assist the President to do the prima facie determination. So the earlier they see, the better, because it even helps the timelines. So I think that part should be dealt with by the Supreme Court. Yes, the Supreme Court should deal with it. I don't think that part is smooth. And also, it brings back to the front burner the recommendation in the Ejechu versus Attorney General, where the Supreme Court said that the Rules of Court Committee, they should come out, make rules on this matter so that they will flesh out the main points in the Constitution. That will help all of us. So I don't think all of the points are moot. Some should be dealt with by the Supreme Court. It's a matter of getting the copy that is now moot because the Chief Justice has been given a copy. And so I expect that it will go smoothly. And then, but Akabli, I don't know if you intend to ask me this question. In terms of empaneling for tomorrow, even though we know that there are 1,001 Supreme Court decisions that say that that is a constitutional duty of the Chief Justice to empanel judges to hear cases, even if it involves the Chief Justice, I think that we are becoming more refined as a society. The Chief Justice shouldn't do it. She should step away, let the most senior judge do it, or in terms of empaneling for tomorrow. What I'm looking at is that if that is done, it also helps the process, just like the way the president quickly gave the Chief Justice a copy, and natural fact was on his way to giving her a copy. It will also help the president to also be more magnanimous in the process, you know, especially in terms of choosing the 3 persons who would, okay, let's leave it when we get there. So basically, let's make the point that if the Chief Justice steps away, even though constitutionally she has a right to empanel, in the same way, it will also help in the fairness because she would have raised the bar. And so the president will also be looking to do something more to also raise the bar. So it will be a race to the top. Race to the top.
All right. Thank you very much, Martin Kpebu, a legal practitioner, for joining this part of the conversation. Let me now come to Mr. Dawodu. I want to start from just the point I left off with him, not the bit about the empaneling, just about the mootness question. Do you share in his response that there's still an aspect of the matter that perhaps is not moot?
Martin, good morning. I think that that aspect I disagree with him, in the sense that when you look at the Ajay case, it talks specifically about the Chief Justice. When it is about the Chief Justice, it says that the Council of State should have the benefit of an independent lawyer who will guide the council, and it has talked about that Council of State should come with a convention or a procedure, especially when it comes to the Chief Justice, for the Council of State to have that advice together with the President before the prima facie case is determined. So Adechum has answered that question already. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Now we are saying that we have to give another interpretation. Already, the principle is that whilst the court has pronounced on an article within the Constitution, you just have to go and enforce it. You don't need to go back and say that you want an interpretation on that matter. So when it comes to the Asefwa, the issues he was acting about, it is moot. Now let me say that, you see, Article 146 actually gives a procedure by which you have to go. That procedure, when the law gives you that procedure, you need to follow that procedure. And it says that that petition, when it is in the case of a superior court judge who is not a Chief Justice, it did not make procedure for the Chief Justice. That is why that lacuna was filled by the Ajay case. It says the procedure for the Chief Justice. Now, I think all we were debating, which we think that, yes, is a step in the right direction, is that we were now looking at, should the prima facie case be established before the person is called on to respond? That had been the procedure.
I mean, if you read the response from the president, you don't get a direct answer to that question. And so one may argue that it will be fair to let the court respond to that directly.
I'm sure that is where now we were agitating, society was agitating that the Aldrim Atram, the natural justice principles should be put in there, that it is against me. Give me the benefit of the doubt, that let me see what my accusers are accusing me of, the complaint. Let me have a look at it. It is a response. I have a little difficulty. It's good. We have elevated the standard, which meets the requirements of natural justice. That is good. It's perfect. It's democracy. Now, what we need to really look and think is that if you have given that response, then what now it is there, if it's established, prima facie case is established, then the committee now will have to investigate and make that inquiry. So at the stage where you have been given the response, I have the response, it means that the president and the council will look at it on the face of it. Whilst we have benefit of response, on the face of it, do you have any question? Is there anything to be rebutted? If there's anything to be rebutted, then we give you the opportunity to now come and the inquiry goes on. On the face of it, if we think that there is nothing in this matter that ends the matter. And, you know, I've always said this process that has been set down, the Honorable Chief Justice will not be the first person that will go through the process. It's a legal process. You know, I hear people say it's politically motivated. Since the Fourth Republic, we have seen almost all the Chief Justice, one way or the other, there have been petitions against them. I
mean, the difference obviously will be that, I mean, for the first time, we had a 146 procedure. I mean, in fact, on 2 occasions. So the first, the Shraj, then the second one had to do with Charlotte say the former Electoral Commission was being removed. Then after that removal happened, I mean, members of your party did make the point quite strongly that this is going to happen again. And again, comments made against the judiciary about fairness. I mean, the president himself constantly said that. And now the petition comes in 3 of them. So that's the context within which people are making that particular allegation.
Let's differentiate this. Let's make it clearer. We're educating people, so let's give some. You see, when it comes to people's whose remuneration is of that of a superior court of judge, like the EC, Shraj, and the rest, we have adopted the 146 because they have almost the same level, the conditions, and if they have to remove them. So you go through that process. It goes to the Chief Justice. You see, it is the Chief Justice who determines whether there's a prima facie case or not, right? And I've always said that people say because it is a legal process that has been put, and the president who would convey the petition to the Chief Justice in the first place was legally elected, right? And at the same time, he's a politician. So if the president does that, then that means it is politically motivated, which I disagree. The Constitution itself is both political and legal document. So it's a process. And the only thing that people will complain is that they said justice must be seen to be done. When they believe that justice is not being done, that is when the people complain and they talk and they make comments. You see, the law is a double-edged sword. It depends on who has the law and how to do it. You can use it for good, you can use it for evil. That is why we've been given that power. So that is why when judges and people have been given some power of responsibility, something that they can say would turn the destiny of people and what they do. It is a job that has been given to you. That's why we call them my lords, my lords. It means that you are put in a place of the Lord Almighty, that you have to do justice and fairness to everybody, irrespective of what you think. That is what the law must be. Fidelity to the law. So the rest, yes, there might be perception, but what does the law say and what ought to be done? It is not an easy task that prima facie case is established, and even once prima facie case is established, you are still given the opportunity to be heard. And even in the case of Chief Justice, Ajay says that you have the benefit of a lawyer and an expert of your own, because it says that the Chief Justice can be removed for administrative issues because he is the head of administration. So if there's an allegation, I'm not saying that that is the case. I don't even know what is the content of the petition. If there is an allegation that the Chief Justice has taken bribe, right, and there's malfeasance, Ajay says that it's a ground you can't remove the Chief Justice. Now, it continues. I read the argument and said that it is too easy for people to just file a petition to remove the Chief Justice, so everybody can petition. That question was answered in Ajay Chum. Ajay Chum said that any citizen who thinks that there had been a breach or the Chief Justice has done anything can bring a petition. The fact that a petition is brought does not mean that you've met the threshold
in fact, that's what the
for the person to be.
That's what the prima facie.
That's what the prima facie. And I'm saying that the duty that has been imposed on the people, let's say the president and council of state, excuse my language, maybe people may not like my friend, excuse me, yes, the people who made part of the council of state are politicians. They have their ideologies. You know where their chiefs' allegiances fall, but they are not stooges. Please, they have been experienced people in life. They have seen things for themselves. They can't read in between the lines. And I don't think that somebody will just go there because of where he's coming from, the political color, and say that this is the way we do. Because at the end of the day, you are going to give account. People would see and know. And I don't think that there is any person who, worth of his salt, would want to have a dent or a blot on his reputation and career.
I mean, Council, finally, on the last point that Martin makes, I mean, what you seniors teach us is that there's an exception to the rule of not being a judge in your own cause. He thinks that in this instance, we should not apply that exception. Someone else should do the empanelment.
There are two things. Now, somebody, if, yes, you've been given the law, says that when the law imposes a duty on me to perform, no matter what it is, I have to do it. Now, we've come to a level we think that, yeah, that law may not do well to us. There is a reason why that law had been there. Because it is believed that that position where you are put, it should be fairness. They should be just. Now, also, we are taught in the law that you should not be a judge in your own cause. So, although the law has given me the right, what I have to do, if I think that the perception is that the people would think that there's no fairness, what I'm going to do is going to be impartial and the rest, I can decide and say that, okay, the next senior most can empanel. But that's a duty given to her. So it is her conscience. It's up to the Chief Justice's conscience to say that I will do A, B, C, or I won't do it. But what would be the perception about the public?
Okay.
Yeah, that you are doing this. That's why the Salah case, till this, even if the right thing was done, people felt that, no, the Chief Justice empaneled people to protect him or protect her. And that will go a long way. So I think that good conscience will guide the process. And I always say that no matter where the people belong, once they get to the top there, they know that what they do today will follow them. I don't think anybody wants that. That will cascade down their children, their family. I'm sure when we read some of the law reports, you see some of the judges, their rulings and the reports. When you read it, you know that this man was compromised. This man, yeah, are you getting it? Okay. So what you do, your work will define you. I don't think anybody wants to be defined in a wrong light.
Now you have to wrap up for me in a minute.
No. What are you talking about? I mean, they have spoken as lawyers. We need to speak as citizens. Okay. I don't know AJ Chum, but I know the Constitution. Yeah. Do you know AJ Chum?
I know AJ Chum, yes.
Because you're a law student.
I know AJ Chum.
But many of us out there do not know AJ Chum. Yeah. We've never read a report. We might never have the opportunity to read the report. But we have the opportunity to read Article 146, yes, Clause 6, down 7, going. And it's a clear cut, black and white. And you see, I always say this, and the lawyers are not happy with me, is when they want to cheat you. That is where they quote some of these reports and other things. When there is a clear cut, it's black and white in the Constitution. If you read it, if it has to do with the removal of the Chief Justice, it says that a petition is given.
Yeah.
From Clause 6, am I right? Now, when the petition is taken to the President then forwards it to the Council of State. Am I right? Then they form a committee. In my view, I'm not a lawyer. The ordinary citizen out there who is not a lawyer, it is at this point, when a committee has been set, that in our view, the Chief Justice will be given a copy, or should be given a copy, of the petition to respond to the committee. In fact, if at the point where the President receives the petition and immediately forwards a copy to the Chief Justice, to whom or to who is the Chief Justice responding to? The President?
She's responding to the contents of the petition
and
gives it to the
addressing
president.
and
the
then
president makes it available to the Council of State as well.
It is a committee that is given that responsibility to deal with the petition. They deal with the prima facie. The president does not deal with the prima facie.
No, I mean, but you have to look at the committees on two levels. I mean, because the first level is the consultation that is taking place between the president and the Council of State. That is the first level.
Yes.
The second level is the committee proper.
The consultation. Hold on.
The committee proper.
Hold on. No, I'm not a lawyer.
No, go ahead.
So,
no, you make a point. You make a point.
No, we're educating the public.
You make a point.
The point is that the consultation with the president is to determine whether or not there is the need to even treat the petition.
Yes.
Yes.
It is when a decision has been taken.
Yes.
That, this petition, the content in the petition is worth looking at. Then a copy would then be given to the Chief Justice. But if the committee, the Council of State and the President decides that they should treat it with contempt, and they have given a copy to the Chief Justice, what is she responding to?
I mean, fair points. I mean, fair point.
So that is where I'm coming
fair
to.
Point. The only disagreement is in the fact that, I mean, those who...
I am your opinion. You can disagree.
That's fine. I mean, of course, it's only opinion.
Because the street...
It's only opinion.
That's why I'm saying that the 146, as you have read,
yes,
that is what has to be done. But now, because of the...
Because at the heart of it... Because at the heart of it...
The natural justice has not...
Yes,
we've not gotten there yet.
That is why
we have not gotten to natural justice.
You're right.
Yeah, but
we have not gotten to natural justice.
No, but Council, the point needs to be made that about the fact that the prima facie determination that is being made now
just said that
it's not in 146. You agree with that?
What
the prima facie determination that is taking place currently is not provided for in 146. It was as a result of the J-Trim case.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's within that context of the conversation that we need to understand that a lot of the matters are not provided explicitly. So
yes, but
it is either we are proceeding
with an understanding,
you
would get to know.
Yeah, so those are the interventions. Those are the interventions that have been made. Those are the interventions that have been made.
Let me explain it to you. You see, that's why it is only the Supreme Court that has been given power to interpret the provision. Are you getting it? So by they interpreting that provision, that is what they said. If there is no procedure for the Chief Justice, or as you are reading, for the Chief Justice,
there is a procedure.
The point that is being made is that
there is a procedure. In my view, there is no lacuna in this.
I mean, if you read 146, you see, if you compare 146 to the preceding provisions that deals with the other Superior Court judges,
there is a clear-cut distinction between other Superior Court justices and the Chief Justice.
What we are drawing attention to is that those provisions have the requirement for prima facie determination. The 146 does not have that.
When there is a consultation between the President and the Council of State to determine whether or not a committee should be set up for the petition to be looked at, and the prof, you can say, what is the English name for it? What is the legal name for it?
Okay, so you learn for me.
But that is the point.
That's fine.
So I do not agree. Now we move to the natural justice. That is where, when the committee is set, then the committee has a responsibility to forward a copy for the Chief Justice to respond. Now, as to whether or not she should set up the
panel, the judges will hear the case tomorrow.
She has a constitutional duty. You understand? But the constitutional duty, in as much as is her right, then she also owes Ghanaians some level of moral and ethical responsibility. Whether or not to deal with a selfish interest and deal with the issues of biases, or go ahead with her constitutional rights and duties, and we all look at it.
Okay. I mean, so the hearing will take place tomorrow. We'll see how all of that will play out.
But I can believe, if you give me just 1 minute on the electricity matter, Lee, I feel that the handing over, you see, the Presidential Transition Act speaks over that. The people who were there for this to get missing, why are they still at post? To answer. They cannot be called upon to answer. And I want to express my condolence to one of my mates and a comrade, Sam P.
Yeah, he was actually here.
He was here. I think That was on the 4th.
11th. After the budget, he actually sat there.
My condolences.
I think we had Dr. Usu Sarkodie as well. He actually sat in this seat.
And the family and the party and the citizens, and also wish the DCs who are being confirmed today that they should know that they are key, the link between the decentralization. I wish them all the best. Those being Central Tongu and Akan constituency, I wish them all the best.
All right, and just before we go, just a quick one. Happy birthday to Sachel Salom of KNUST Biochemistry Department from the family and Phil in Kumasi. And this one is a special note that I received from my good friend.
That is my head of graphic designs.
Okay.
And I think there's a sister also. So if I don't do it, Movement for Change, our graphic designs will come.
That's all. So my guest for this segment have been Nana Yosapon, Senior Aid Political Aid to Alan Kojo Shemantin of the Movement of Change. Victor Kojoga Daudu is a legal practitioner and a member of the NDC. Earlier, Martin Pebu joined us, a legal practitioner, and we also had Professor Kwesi Enin joining us for the first part of the conversation on the issues surrounding the missing ECG containers. The show continues. Keep tuned in here on TV3. I'm Joseph Akable.